Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and today I'm doing the Extraordinarily Average tag. So welcome or welcome back if that's the case. Yes, it's Tag Tuesday again. And I thought I would do the Extraordinarily Average tag, which was created recently by David Wiley. Great tag, David. I wasn't tagged myself by anyone, but I've seen this on various people's channels and really like the look of the prompt. So I thought I would give it a go myself. So I will link to David's original video in the description, of course, as always. So before we start, a quick note on what I'm going to use as a definition for kind of average, because it's quite a difficult one, that. I think it's quite subjective. So I'm going to use it in terms of like things that I don't see talked about, maybe as much as I would like to see them talked about. Things that, perhaps haven't had the longevity that I think they deserve. Stuff like that, basically. So yes, it doesn't mean that it's kind of meh if it's kind of average, but certainly the things that I'm going to talk about are the sort of things where I think I'd like to see them mentioned more. I'd like to see more love given to them. So on to the prompts. Prompt 1. What is a book that is viewed as average but you felt was extraordinary? I'm actually going to mention 2 because for me they go hand in hand, and that's 2 books that I read when I was in school, when I was probably about 13 or 14, something like that, in English class. And the first one is When the Wind Blows by Raymond Briggs, which is essentially a graphic novel. And the second one is Z for Zachariah by Robert O'Brien. And these 2 together that were read sort of, in succession in English class had a massive impact on me. These were kind of the first, not just depictions of, but kind of the first major kind of knowledge that I kind of got of nuclear, the idea of nuclear holocaust. When the Wind Blows is to me an incredibly poignant story. It follows an elderly couple not really understanding what's going to happen when nuclear fallout arrives, and kind of the sort of things that they do to try and prepare, to try and make themselves safe when there isn't anything they can do, and the way it's told through kind of visual form, and there's an excellent animated version of it as well. That it really got to me, and it shocked me, I think, as a kid of that age, and then similarly so, Z for Zachariah. But yeah, both of these books just had such a massive impact on me, and maybe it's their age, maybe it's that we've seen so much more kind of depictions of horror, sort of nuclear horror, over the years that they don't get talked about as much. But for me, both of those were extraordinary reads. Prompt number 2. Who is an author who is viewed as average but you felt was extraordinary? Again, I don't know whether he's viewed as average particularly. I just don't hear him talked about anywhere near as much as I think he deserves. And that is Alberto Echo, who wrote several books, both fiction and non-fiction as well. Some really good non-fiction on beauty and on ugliness and sort of various different things. He was an academic and semiotician, and his fiction work particularly is, I think, extraordinary in its depth of detail. He uses a lot of he likes arcane and esoteric kind of knowledge. He references a huge amount of stuff like history, politics, language, and in quite quite a bit of detail. You do need a dictionary when you read Echo, and you do need access to the internet to look up a lot of the references. But his choice of language, his kind of his prose, his knowledge that goes into the books, that is evident in the books, and how he weaves all of this really kind of complex and detailed information together into these wonderful stories, these imaginative stories, whether it's historical fiction or thrillers or mysteries or whatever it may be. They are, to me, extraordinary. And the other thing that's extraordinary about them is that I'm not the sort of person who generally goes for that kind of intellectual, academic sort of stuff in my fiction reading, and it's hard work for me to read those, but he manages to keep me invested in it. He manages to really suck me in and want to work for it, and so in that respect he's definitely extraordinary for me. Prompt number 3. Who is a musician or band whose music is considered average, but you felt was extraordinary? That for me is Massive Attack, a Bristol-based band who have been around for quite a while now, and were popular, most definitely. And that for me they are, kind of the sort of band or the sort of group that creates stuff that is good for any circumstance for me. If I'm having trouble sleeping, I can put it on and it chills me right out. I can just sit and listen to it, just actually focus on listening to it and listening to the way it's written, to the way it's constructed. I can have it on when I'm working because it gives me focus. I can listen to it when I'm reading because it doesn't pull too much attention away. It's kind of just an accompaniment. It is very much kind of just good for all occasions, whether I want to really concentrate on it or not, or or whether it's kind of a background accompaniment. It's kind of good for just good for a really chill mood. I can be quite anxious. I can get quite sort of anxious and overwrought in terms of my thinking, and it's the sort of music that just really chills me out. Plus they have done some really interesting collaborations. There was one at the Manchester International Festival a few years ago, which unfortunately I didn't get to see live, although I've seen sort of sections of it since, recorded sections. But I was actually working another show at the festival, so I couldn't get to it. But that was with Adam Curtis, who is an incredible documentary filmmaker, who makes some really interesting stuff. So if you don't know Adam Curtis, give him a Google. Yeah, Massive Attack they created essentially a soundtrack to go along with this film that was being shown, and it was a live show. So they've done stuff like that. They're just I just think they're very creative, a really creative, interesting band. Prompt number 4. What is a TV show or movie that is considered average but you felt was extraordinary? That's quite an easy one to me, I think, that one. And that is Fringe, the sort of the sci-fi pseudoscience FBI police procedural craziness that was Fringe. Ran for 5 seasons. I think it was popular at the time, but it's one that's just it doesn't still get the love like some other older series. It kind of I don't hear it talked about a lot in people's kind of top series, and I love it, absolutely love it. It's one that I constantly go back to and rewatch. I have favourite episodes that I'll stick on if I just want something kind of familiar and comforting, essentially. Although it can be quite dark, it can be quite gross at times. But I really took to it, and I just thought it was kind of quite a good, clever concept, and I liked the characters in it. I liked the character relationships. I loved the multiverse stuff that was in it. That stuff was fantastic. I do like multiverses. And yeah, it was one that I just got completely obsessed with at the time. And then, as I say, it doesn't seem to have kind of kept the love. It didn't have the longevity that some other series of that sort of era did. So yeah, but I think it's a fantastic show. Prompt number 5. What is a Booktube channel whose subscriber count is average, but you feel is extraordinary? I don't really know what an average Booktube channel subscription count would be, to be honest. So I will go for this one. This is a channel that has I think just over maybe 4,000 subs. So not really tiny, but like not big by any means. And that is Doom Antidote. Ben. I love Ben's videos. He has a wonderful presentation style, quite theatrical, very funny. He reads very, very different stuff to me. He reads a lot of classics and a lot of literary fiction, which I read virtually none of. But that's why I like it, because it's his presentation and the way that he talks about the books that he's read makes his experience really interesting. And whilst I might never read those books, I want to hear about them. I want to hear about people's experience. You'll have to excuse the cat; she's quite noisy. So yeah, definitely Ben. Thanks for all the entertainment. But yeah, I will always look forward to Ben's videos coming out. Prompt number 6. What is a skill you're average at, but you'd like to become extraordinary? Probably sewing. I can sew. Like needlecraft sort of sewing, not just sewing a button on. I can do that, and I can use the sewing machine. But a little while ago, I started doing sort of bits of cross stitch and embroidery and stuff like that. And I really enjoy it. It's a really chill thing to do, and I can do it whilst I'm listening to audiobooks and stuff like that as well, which is good, because I need something to do with my hands when I'm listening to audiobooks. I can't just sit and listen, because otherwise I tune out. My brain goes off into other places. So I need something that I can do that doesn't take too much concentration. And so I started doing some cross stitch and stuff like that, and yeah, I'm decent enough at it. I can do bits of cross stitch and embroidery and black work and stuff like that, but I would like to get better at it. I see what other people are able to kind of achieve with it in terms of things like texture, especially with embroidery and all the different stitches. I kind of go, oh yeah, I want to get better at that. So I just need to keep practicing. I need to keep doing it whilst I'm doing the audiobooks, and I'm sure eventually I'll get better. So yes, sewing. Prompt number 7. You find a time machine that will take you back in time for a day, but the day you select must be an average day. Where would you go, and what would you do to make the trip extraordinary? I think most of the folks that I've seen do this tag have struggled with this question, just in terms of like it's an interesting thought experiment, and it just leads down rabbit holes basically. So my first thought was like, oh, I could go back to sort of some time earlier in my life and like find my younger self and like tell them that everything was going to be all right, and don't overthink things and all that kind of stuff. But then I thought, well, no, because actually I turned out all right. And some of the stuff I used to worry about as a youngster, kind of and some of the trials and tribulations and all that kind of stuff led to who I am today. So A, I don't want to cause any time paradoxes, and B, I don't really need to do that. It might be extraordinary to be able to do that, and for the younger me at the time to hear that, but that's not extraordinary enough. So I thought, well, go further back in time, and what would I like to do? And I thought, well, see some theatre. I thought, should I go back to Elizabethan era and go and see some Shakespeare done, you know, when it was, you know, current, when it was contemporary. Or, you know, go back to sort of Restoration times, you know, and go and see some, you know, something like, you know, one of the first productions of, you know, where women were allowed on the stage, you know, stuff like that, which would be extraordinary. And I thought, like, with my love of horror, there's only one place really, only one sort of theatre that I would really love to have seen at the time it was being produced, you know, when it was first being produced, and that's Grand Guignol. For anybody who doesn't know what Grand Guignol is, it's a sort of a form of theatre linked to Théâtre de Grand Guignol, which was a theatre in Paris, near Moulin Rouge, in a rather disreputable area of Montmartre, and it was, you know, short plays that really emphasised like violence, horror, sadism. You know, it was incredibly bloody, and grotesque. It was really a gore fest, and it was often accompanied by sex farces as well. It was, you know, it was very, very in your face for the time. It was extremely popular. They had some brilliant special effects for the time. They had there was an actor and a technician as well, stage technician, who pioneered some of the sort of, like, you know, lo-fi kind of special effects, of, you know, lots and lots of blood, you know, stage blood that would kind of congeal under lights and stuff like that, and ways of like making it look like, you know, people's eyeballs were flying out of sockets and heads were getting chopped off and stuff like that. Did come across to Britain briefly, but the censors basically just massacred it. They wouldn't let, you know, half the stuff be staged, and certainly the sex farces were just, you know, they were censored so heavily or banned outright that it never took off in England. So yes, the theatre of Grand Guignol, that is where you will find me, if I ever get a trip back in time. Prompt number 8. You win a week's vacation, but all the popular travel spots are all booked out. Where would you go, and what would you do to make the trip extraordinary? I always avoid the popular spots. You know, our holidays are predominantly a cottage, not quite in the middle of nowhere, but certainly close to it, certainly away from hotspots. And, you know, we like to be able to avoid people as much as possible, basically. So, you know, so it would be something exactly like that. But if by some strange happening, all of the spots that I would usually go to avoid people were suddenly, you know, manic with folks, crowds, then I would probably go on one of these sort of volunteering holidays that I've seen, where you can kind of go to a remote sort of island that's you know, generally closed off to the public because it's for conservation. I've seen ones where you can kind of go up in Scotland. I think they are like an island where you can go and count puffins and help conserve their habitat and stuff. And I love puffins. I would love to go and help, like, count the puffins and all the baby puffins, which I think are called pufflings, which just makes them even cuter. And help kind of conserve that species, which you know is dependent on the year, can struggle. So yeah, I would do something like that, and you know, kind of feel like I was doing something good at the same time as just indulging my love for the cuteness. Final prompt number 9: tag some extraordinary channels. I am going to tag 2 channels today, but it's about time I actually start tagging a few more people. The first one is Read by Fred. I've found Fred's channel relatively recently, and or should I say, Fred found mine, and I've been enjoying watching Fred's videos, and he reads a lot of different stuff to me as well as some similar stuff, and I think also based on what I've seen of his other tag videos, I think he does have some interesting answers for these prompts. And the other one is another channel that I've found recently who I'm really enjoying watching, and that is Nadine over at Tome Raider, who I think would also have some interesting, very interesting answers to these prompts. So that's my two tags for this one. Thank you very much for watching. This has been a very enjoyable tag video to do. If you liked this video, please do consider giving us a like and possibly subscribing for more content coming soon. I'll be back very soon with more ramblings on all things bookish, but from me, for now, that's ta-ra.